Good morning, evening, or afternoon to all of you beautiful people. Josh here, back to bring you some sweet voice-based content, with the added bonus of me not being ill. So, Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D, it's a thing that I continue to mention as I love it so damn much. Mostly as I'm far too anxious to go out on real adventures, so this is a nice alternative. All joking aside, D&D is brilliant. If you haven't heard of D&D, first of all, welcome to the internet. I can tell it's your first time. Please try and avoid all the porn. Second of all, Dungeons & Dragons is a role-playing tabletop game that's played with a group of people. Your fantasy-themed original characters group up and go on a quest, led by the ever-powerful Dungeon Master. The results of your adventure determined purely by the roll of a dice. Maybe you'll slay the dragon, save the world, and get the girl. Or maybe you'll fail a charisma check and the girl will go home with the half-orc that you partied up with. True story, don't want to talk about it. Now, if you're a voice actor who also likes D&D, then you've probably heard of a little thing called Critical Role. It's a show where a bunch of voice actors have grouped up to basically play D&D together. Admittedly, I've only recently started watching it, so I'm not entirely clued up on everything. I don't even know if I've started in the right place, but I'll figure it out. But it got me thinking. While Critical Role has showed us what happens when talented voice actors get together and play D&D, what happens when an aspiring voice actor gets the inkling to play Dungeons & Dragons and use it as an outlet to improve? Well, my friends, if you've asked that question, then you are in luck. Because in today's video, I'm going to talk about why I think that D&D is a great way to learn and grow as a voice actor, and specifically talk about 3 ways that it's particularly helped me. So, without any further ado, let's party up, grab your nearest wizarding hat, and let's go! So the first thing I wanted to cover is probably the biggest part of Dungeons & Dragons, and that's role-playing. It is a role-playing game after all. Now, role-playing is essential to Dungeons & Dragons as both the player and the Dungeon Master. As a DM, everything that the player characters see, smell, and interact with is controlled by you. You give life to these events, and then, as a player, it's your job to then react to these events. Because it's a role-playing game, D&D encourages immersion in the world, and, by extension, your character. As a player in D&D, you know your character the best, so you know how a character is going to react in a certain situation. Are they aggressive, scheming, warm and welcoming? Only you truly know, and this is a big thing with voice acting as well. Now, admittedly, as a voice actor, you do have a little bit less freedom with this kind of thing, especially if you've auditioned for somebody else's project as they've crafted the character on your behalf. But in order to bring that character to life and portray the character in the way that the director intends, you have to fully immerse yourself in a character. You decide based off what you know how they're going to react to a particular situation. If they're angry, is there a shake and a rasp in their voice, or are they booming loud, the epitome of rage? When they're sad, does their throat get tight, or do they just remain entirely silent and turn away? It's up to you to portray this, and immersing yourself in the character is the best way to do so. Second thing is a bit more of a fun one. Different characters mean different voices. Yeah, thanks for that one, Captain Obvious. Honestly, think about it though. As a player, each one of the characters that you create for any number of campaigns that you do could be drastically different from one another. One campaign, you may be a gruff, chiseled, grisly warrior who only thinks for himself and is only partnered up with these people out of convenience. And then in the next, you may be a fun-loving bard who sings everything that he says, much to the annoyance of the group. Now, in this situation, I would actually highly encourage crafting many completely different characters for any Dungeons & Dragons campaign that you play. I mean, sure, you're always going to have a favourite that you go back to, but that's the same in voice acting as well. While you may have a particular favourite character or character archetype that you play, it's good to expand your range and see what you can do. As a DM, it's even more important to show your range. As it's you who brings every single NPC to life, it's so important for the immersion of the game to not have every character sound the same. You'd be really weirded out if you were talking to a guy who sounded like this, and then turned out to be the old lady that you've found at the care home. You'd think you'd gone fucking loony if that happened in real life, so it's important to not do that in D&D either. But don't think of this as a problem, think of it as a fun exercise. Even just changing accents for each individual NPC that they meet can really help to differentiate the characters that they meet along the way and help with that immersion. I don't know if that sounded any good at all, but if it did, round of applause for me. Anyway, so use D&D to experiment with the voices that you do know, find some new voices to try, and just have a bit of fun with it. For me personally, it's really helped with my voice acting, so I would assume or hope it would do the same for you. Now, Everything that I've said may be a little bit daunting, but this brings me to the third and final reason why I think D&D is really great to hone your craft as a voice actor. D&D should be a safe space. Above and beyond anything else, D&D should be a fun place where you can just get lost in a world with your friends safely. If there's a topic that you don't feel comfortable broaching in a D&D game, let your DM know and the rest of your crew know, and they should be respectful to your boundaries. If you're struggling with something in the game or someone in the group, you should be able to have an open and civil conversation, and your DM and the rest of your party should be willing to help you get past that, or maybe even remove that from the game. And if you're using D&D to practice your voice acting and hone your skills and get better whilst having a bit of fun, your teammates should be there to have fun with you. D&D is a game, and first and foremost, the most important thing with a game is having fun, no matter what weirdos on the internet tell you. So create that safe space with your friends, have fun, get lost in your character, be over the top, be under the top, do whatever you want to do, but most importantly, have fun. Because D&D, there's nothing like it. It's truly unique. And there we go. That is the 3 biggest reasons why D&D helped me with voice acting, and why I think it could help you too. If you haven't played D&D before and somehow this video has inspired you to give it a try, I'd highly recommend watching Joe Cat's Crap Guide to D&D. I'll leave a link to the playlist in the description. Seriously, it's a brilliant introduction to the game and all of its mechanics. I use it with anybody who's new to D&D. It breaks down the mechanics of D&D, how it works, the characters you can play, and how to get started, whilst also being genuinely funny as well as informative. On the other side of that, if you have played before, comment below and let me know some of your funniest and best D&D experiences. I'm genuinely curious and really excited to share some D&D stories with people. Or if you'd rather me just talk about some of my D&D stories in a separate video, once again let me know in the comments. I'd genuinely consider doing that for a future video. As always, like this video and subscribe to my channel for more beautiful voice-based content if you haven't already and you do enjoy my stuff. Keep your eyes out for my next video. I upload every 2 weeks on a Sunday, but until then, thank you so much for watching. I genuinely appreciate it. And as always, stay wonderful.